The bright morning on Proxima Centauri b turned dark as massive ships blocked the twin suns. Jack Morrison looked up from his patrol route, squinting at the strange vessels. They weren't human ships. After 5 years as head of security for New Hope Colony, he knew every Earth vessel design. These were something else entirely. Control, we have unknown craft entering atmosphere. Count 6, no, 7 vessels. Request immediate identification. Jack said into his comm unit. Static answered. Him. The comms were jammed. Jack ran toward the colony center, his augmented legs carrying him faster than any normal human could move. The colony's warning sirens began to wail. Too late. The first explosions rattled the ground beneath his feet. These weren't explorers or diplomats. This was an attack. The ships landed in a circle around the colony's main structures. Their hulls hissed open, revealing tall reptilian figures in sleek armor. Their scales glinted metallic green and blue in the light of the fires now burning throughout the colony. Each carried what looked like energy weapons more advanced than anything Earth had developed. Vrax Mercenaries, a voice said beside Jack. Sergeant Olivia Winters had appeared at his side, rifle already in hand. I recognized them from the briefings. They're hired guns, work for anyone with enough credits. How do you know that? Jack asked, pulling his own weapon. I wasn't always colony security, Olivia said with a grim smile. We need to get the civilians to the bunkers. The reptilian aliens moved with precise coordination, rounding up colonists and herding them into groups. Their movements were fluid, but rigid, like soldiers following a very specific plan. Jack and Olivia managed to direct several families toward the underground shelters before the aliens spotted them. 3 of the reptilians broke away from the main group and approached, weapons raised. Stand down, primate, the lead alien hissed in surprisingly good English. Your resistance is illogical. Jack raised his hand slowly. We're a peaceful settlement. We have no quarrel with you. The alien tilted its head, yellow eyes blinking sideways. This is not about quarrel. This is business. Your kind has resources and biological uniqueness. A second alien spoke in a series of clicks and hisses to the leader. Yes, the leader responded in English. These 2 appear to be security forces. The female has military implants. Take them both for testing. Jack exchanged a quick glance with Olivia. They had trained for emergencies, but first contact with hostile aliens hadn't been in the manual. Now! Jack shouted. They both fired simultaneously. Jack's shot hit the lead alien in the shoulder, causing it to stagger back. Olivia's shot missed as the aliens moved with shocking speed. The fight was brief and brutal. The aliens were stronger than they looked and faster than any human had a right to expect. Jack managed to take down one with his combat knife, but the other 2 overwhelmed them. The last thing Jack saw was the butt of an alien weapon swinging toward his head. He woke to pain and the taste of blood. Night had fallen. Fires still burned around the colony. Jack's enhanced healing implants had kept him alive, but just barely. The aliens had left him for dead, not understanding human resilience or the military-grade augmentations beneath his skin. Jack dragged himself to his feet. His body felt broken, but his determination remained intact. All around him, the colony lay in ruins. Some buildings still stood, but many were smoking rubble. There were bodies, too. Not everyone had made it to the shelters. He activated his emergency beacon. If any Earth ships were within range, they would pick up the signal. Then he searched for survivors. Over the next hours, Jack found 23 colonists hiding in the ruins. From them, he pieced together what had happened. The aliens had taken nearly 300 people, including Olivia. They had focused on the young and healthy, especially those with signs of military background or augmentations. 3 days later, a United Earth Defense Force vessel arrived in response to the distress signal. Jack was in the medical bay, getting his injuries treated when Admiral Richard Blackwood himself came to debrief him. Lieutenant Morrison, the Admiral said, his face grave. Your service record says you were Navy SEAL before retiring to colony security. Jack nodded, wincing as the medical bot repaired his fractured ribs. Yes, sir, Tier 1 operator, 12 years. Blackwood handed Jack a tablet. On it was an alien text with translation. This came through official channels an hour ago. The Galactic Council, whatever that is, has expressed regret over an unauthorized acquisition operation on our colony. They claim the mercenaries acted without sanction. Jack scrolled through the message. They're offering to negotiate for the return of our people. Yes, Blackwood said, his voice hard, while also informing us that we're now classified as a protectorate species due to our developmental stage and our evolution on what they call a Class 5 death world. Death world? Earth? Apparently our home planet is considered extremely dangerous by galactic standards. High gravity, atmospheric toxins, extreme weather, dangerous wildlife, radiation levels. Things we consider normal are apparently hellish to most sentient species. Jack processed this information. So these Vraks, they expected easy targets. Instead, they found humans. Blackwood's face showed grim satisfaction. The message mentions you specifically. Apparently you killed one of their elites with a primitive blade weapon after sustaining injuries that should have been fatal. You made an impression. Jack remembered the fight, the alien's surprise when he kept fighting despite his wounds. The Council suggests we accept their diplomatic solution. The President and Joint Chiefs have other ideas. Blackwood handed Jack another tablet. This is classified beyond top secret. The screen showed a simple designation, Spectre Protocol. What am I looking at? Jack asked. Since first detecting alien signals 3 years ago, we've been preparing. Spectre Protocol is the deployment of our most elite Special Operations Unit, specifically trained for extraterrestrial threats. They've never been field tested because we've never had cause until now. Jack looked up from the tablet. You're sending them after our people. Blackwood nodded. The Council thinks we're primitive Deathworlders who will cower and negotiate. They don't understand that taking our people was the worst mistake these mercenaries could make. I want in, Jack said immediately. I thought you might. Your augmentations and experience make you valuable, but you'll need to be cleared by medical first. Blackwood stood to leave. Rest up, Lieutenant. Soon we're going to show these aliens exactly why they should fear Deathworlders. As the Admiral left, Jack looked again at the alien message on the tablet. The translation of the Vrax commander's report contained a line that made him smile darkly. Exercise extreme caution when subduing human targets. They continue fighting long past the point where civilized species would surrender. The aliens had no idea what was coming for them. Commander Diane Hayes stood at the viewport of the UNS Shadowfax, watching the stars blur as the ship used its experimental drive. The ship was Earth's first attempt at using reverse-engineered alien technology. So far, it worked better than expected. Final briefing in 5 minutes, she announced over the comm. Her voice was calm, but inside she felt the familiar tension before a mission. This one was different, though. This was humanity's first strike against an alien threat. The briefing room was small but efficient, just like everything else on the Shadowfax. 5 people waited for her, each the best in their field. Together they formed Ghost Squad, Earth's most elite special forces unit created specifically for extraterrestrial operations. Ladies and gentlemen, Diane began, activating the holographic display in the center of the table. Welcome to our first official mission beyond the solar system. The display showed a massive space station orbiting an asteroid. This is our target, the Consortium's forward operating base. Intelligence from Lieutenant Morrison and Admiral Blackwood suggests this is where they process new captives before moving them to their main facility. Sergeant Noah Rodriguez leaned forward, his dark eyes scanning the station layout. The demolitions expert had opted for experimental nanite augmentations that allowed him to interface directly with explosives. Tiny machines flowed through his bloodstream, ready to help him turn anything into a precision weapon. Security looks tight, he said, but there's always a weak point. Next to him, Lieutenant Kate Lawson nodded. The sniper's genetic modifications gave her eyes a slightly unusual appearance, pupils that could contract to pinpoints or expand to take in the faintest light. I count 16 external defense turrets. I can disable the main ones from 2 kilometers out. Chief Petty Officer William Jackson, the team's combat medic, studied the biological data scrolling beside the station image. I've reviewed the xenobiology files. Most consortium species have similar vulnerabilities to humans, but the Vracs have redundant organ systems. Aim for the head or central spine. Lieutenant Eric Chen, communications specialist with neural implants that let him process data at superhuman speeds, pointed to several spots on the station. Their communications array has 3 backup systems. We'll need to take them all out simultaneously to prevent distress calls. Private First Class Melissa Grant cracked her knuckles, the sound slightly metallic from her cybernetic hand enhancements. The close-quarters combat specialist had sacrificed her natural hands for weapons that could never be taken from her. Just get me inside. I'll handle the rest. Diane nodded, satisfied with her team. Our primary objective is intelligence gathering. We need to locate the human captives and map the consortium's operations. Secondary objective is to disrupt their operations without revealing our full capabilities. The display changed to show a reptilian alien with admiral insignia. This is General Zextal, commander of the Vrax mercenary fleet that hit our colony. He's likely not on site, but any intelligence on his whereabouts is priority. The team spent the next hour reviewing their infiltration plan. Unlike the direct assaults that characterized many human military operations, this would be subtle. They would slip in, gather what they needed, and leave only enough damage to send a message. 6 hours later, the ghosts moved through the vacuum of space toward the station. Their suits were black, absorbing both light and most scanning frequencies. Each team member carried specialized equipment designed for their role. Station security is on rotation, Chen's voice came through their comms. Shifting to pattern Delta in 30 seconds. That gives us a 3-minute window to reach access point Bravo. The team adjusted their course. They had trained for this in simulations, but performing these maneuvers in actual space was different. The human brain wasn't designed for 3-dimensional movement in zero gravity. Yet another challenge they had overcome through rigorous training. They reached the access point, a maintenance airlock that saw minimal traffic. Chen attached a device to the external panel, his fingers moving with practiced precision despite the bulky spacesuit gloves. I'm in their systems, he said. Basic security, nothing special. They're not expecting visitors who can hack alien tech. The airlock opened, and the team slipped inside. Once the chamber repressurized, they removed their helmets but kept their suits on. The station's atmosphere was breathable for humans, but only just. Smells like a swamp, Rodriguez commented. Most consortium species evolved in higher methane environments, Jackson explained. What smells bad to us is comfortable for them. Diane checked her weapon, a specially designed pulse rifle. Remember, minimal casualties unless necessary. We're here for information, not a body count. Move out. The ghosts moved through the station's service corridors, avoiding the main passageways. Chen's hacking had looped the security feeds, making them invisible to electronic surveillance. The few alien workers they encountered were quickly subdued with non-lethal force. They reached a major data hub 20 minutes after entry. Chen connected to the alien network while the others stood guard. I've found something, he said after several tense minutes. Looks like transport records. The human captives were here 3 days ago, but they've been moved to another facility, sending coordinates to everyone's HUD now. The display in their helmets updated with a new location. A moon orbiting a gas giant deeper in the system. That matches what Lieutenant Morrison told us, Diane said. Any mention of Sergeant Winters? Chen's fingers moved across his interface. Yes. She's listed as high-value specimen, along with 5 other humans with military backgrounds. They've been separated from the main group. A sudden alarm blared through the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. That's not for us, Rodriguez said, checking his tactical display. Something's happening in the lower levels. I see it, Chen confirmed. They've got some kind of containment breach in their laboratories. 2 levels down. Diane made a quick decision. Change of plans, we investigate the breach. Could be useful intelligence. The team moved quickly through the now chaotic station. Alien crew members rushed past them. too focused on the emergency to notice the human infiltrators. They reached the laboratory level to find scenes of carnage. Something had torn through security doors and killed several alien guards. The wounds were jagged, not made by energy weapons or conventional bullets. What could do this? Grant asked, examining the body of a massive insectoid alien torn nearly in half. Jackson knelt beside one of the corpses, his medical scanner whirring. Whatever it was, it has human DNA. The team exchanged glances. Diane checked her weapon. Again. Find it, but approach with extreme caution. They followed the trail of destruction to a sealed chamber. Inside, visible through a reinforced viewport, was what appeared to be a human man. He was strapped to a table, convulsing violently. His skin rippled as though something moved beneath it. They're experimenting on them, Jackson whispered, horror in his voice. Trying to weaponize something about human biology. Chen accessed the chamber's control panel. According to this, they were attempting to combine human adaptive cells with something called nexus parasites. The experiment failed, catastrophically. A huge alien in medical garb approached the chamber from the other side. It pressed several controls, and gas began filling the room with the restrained human. They're terminating the experiment, Diane realized. Download everything you can, Chen. We need to know what they're doing to our people. As Chen worked, an alert sounded on Rodriguez's tactical display. We've got company. Security team heading this way. Time to introduce ourselves, Diane said. Remember, we need to leave an impression, but don't reveal all our capabilities. Let's show these aliens why humans from a death world aren't to be trifled with. The team took positions in the corridor, weapons ready. As the first alien security team rounded the corner, they got their first taste of what made human special forces uniquely terrifying in combat. And somewhere deep in the station, the failed experiment continued to mutate, setting in motion events that would forever change how the galaxy viewed humans. The first shots came without warning. Energy bolts sizzled through the air where Diane's head had been a moment before. Her training kicked in automatically. She dropped low and rolled to cover behind a bulkhead. Contact front. 6 hostiles. Standard formation, she called out. The alien security team advanced cautiously down the corridor. They moved with military precision, their scaled bodies protected by what looked like energy shields. These weren't ordinary station guards. They were trained soldiers. Lieutenant Kate Lawson sighted down her specialized sniper rifle from her position at the far end of the corridor. Her enhanced eyes focused, pupils contracting to pinpoints as she calculated trajectory, air resistance, and the strange gravitational fluctuations of the station. 3, 2, 1. Mark, she whispered to herself. She fired 3 times in rapid succession. The specially designed rounds passed through the energy shields as if they weren't there, finding gaps in the alien's armor that no normal human could have seen. 3 Vraks fell instantly. What in the void? One of the remaining aliens hissed in their language, which Chen's translator picked up. The alien security forces had never encountered human marksmanship before. They were used to species who evolved in stable environments, who treated combat as an ordered exchange of fire. They weren't prepared for the deadly precision of a predator species that had spent millennia hunting and being hunted. Rodriguez used the moment of confusion to make his move. He sprinted across the open corridor at a speed that made the aliens' tracking systems lag. On a high-gravity world like Earth, quick bursts of speed were essential for survival. Here in the station's lighter gravity, it made him seem almost supernatural. As he ran, he tossed 3 small objects that attached to the ceiling above the remaining aliens. They weren't conventional explosives. They were something he had designed specifically for this mission. When they detonated, they released a targeted electromagnetic pulse that shorted out the aliens' energy shields and communication devices. Shields. Down, Rodriguez shouted. Grant moved next, her cybernetically enhanced hands shifting form as she charged. Where human fingers had been seconds before, now there were hardened alloy claws designed for close combat. She reached the first stunned alien before it could react, striking with terrible efficiency at the vulnerable points Jackson had identified during their briefing. The alien collapsed without a sound. Its companion fired wildly, but Grant was already moving again, her body flowing like water around the energy bolts. Humans had been practicing hand-to-hand combat for thousands of years. Their bodies were designed to twist, turn, and strike in ways that made perfect sense on a death world, but seemed impossibly unpredictable to species from more forgiving environments. The last alien turned to flee, but Chen had anticipated this. He had hacked into the station's systems to seal the bulkhead behind them. The alien found itself trapped with nowhere to go. "Surrender," Diane said, stepping forward with her weapon raised. Chen's translator converted her words to the harsh, clicking language of the Vraks. The alien dropped its weapon, its yellow eyes wide with something humans would recognize as fear. "How did you get past our defenses?" it asked. "No species can move like that. No species can see the gaps in our shields." Diane smiled coldly. "You should have done your research before taking our people." While Grant secured their prisoner, Jackson examined the fallen aliens. "Two are still alive," he reported. "I'm stabilizing them." "Why save them?" Chen asked. "They wouldn't do the same for us." Jackson continued his work. "Because we're not them, and because living witnesses tell better stories than dead ones." Diane nodded her approval. "Chen, what did you get from that lab?" Chen tapped the data storage unit attached to his wrist. "Everything. They're testing human adaptability. According to these files, our cellular regeneration rate is off their charts. Most species can't handle the radiation levels, gravity shifts, and environmental toxins we consider normal on Earth. That explains the experiments," Rodriguez said, returning from setting surveillance devices around the corridor. "Not just experiments," Chen continued, his face grim as he processed the information through his neural implants. "They're trying to weaponize us." The file classified humans as biological gold mines for military applications. Diane checked her tactical display. "We've got 4 minutes before the station's security protocols reset and they realize we're here. Let's move to the secondary objective." The team advanced deeper into the station, moving with a confidence that came from years of training. They reached the central command hub with minimal resistance. Most of the security forces had been drawn to the lab breach. "Rodriguez, plant the bugs." "Chen, download their navigational data. We need to know exactly where they took our people." "Grant, watch the door." "Lawson, find us an exit route." "Jackson, see if there's any more medical data about what they're doing to the captives." The team worked with practiced efficiency. Within minutes, they had what they came for. "Time to leave a message," Diane said. Rodriguez grinned and pulled out a small device. "I thought you'd never ask." The device wasn't designed to destroy the station. That would be too obvious, too direct. Instead, when activated, it would cause cascading system failures throughout the station's non-essential systems. Nothing that would kill anyone, but enough to make it clear this wasn't a random system failure. "Set it for 10 minutes after we leave," Diane ordered, "and make sure it leaves our signature." Rodriguez nodded, programming the device. When it activated, it would display a simple message on every console in the station. "Return what you took. This is your only warning." In the corner would be a small symbol, the outline of Earth. The team exited the station the same way they had entered, moving through maintenance corridors and service ducts. Just as they reached their extraction point, alarms blared throughout the station. "They found the other devices," Chen said, checking his tactical display. "Perfect timing," Diane replied as they sealed their helmets and prepared to return to the vacuum of space. From their extraction point, they watched as sections of the station began powering down. Lights flickered and died. Communication arrays went silent. Life support remained functional, but little else worked properly. "Mission accomplished," Diane said, as they jetted back toward the waiting Shadowfax. "Now they know we can reach them anywhere." Aboard the consortium station, General Zextal received the report of the raid. He had arrived just hours after the human team departed, intent on overseeing the human experimentation personally. "Impossible," he hissed, reading the casualty figures. 6 elite guards defeated by how many attackers? 5, possibly 6, his subordinate replied nervously. The survivors described them as moving unnaturally fast, striking with impossible precision. They knew our weaknesses, sir. Zextal's scales shifted color with his anger. Show me the security recordings. That's just it, sir. They disabled our systems. We have only fragments. The general watched the patchy footage with growing concern. The human attackers moved with a deadly grace that seemed at odds with their bulky forms. They anticipated actions before they happened. They worked together with a coordination that spoke of intense training. These aren't ordinary humans, he finally said. These are their warriors, their hunters. On the final fragment of footage, he saw the human leader stare directly into the camera before destroying it. The message was clear. We see you. We can reach you. We are coming for our people. For the first time in his long military career, General Zextal felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. At that same moment, the Shadowfax jumped to faster than light speed, carrying the Ghost Squad toward their next target. The first blow had been struck. The aliens had learned that humans weren't just Deathworlders. They were Deathworlders with the intelligence, technology, and will to fight back, and they were just getting started. 3 months passed. The Ghost Squad had conducted 7 successful missions against consortium targets across 3 different star systems. Each operation left behind the same calling card: disabled facilities, minimal casualties, and the simple message to return what they had taken. Admiral Blackwood reviewed the latest intelligence reports in his office aboard the UNS Shadowfax. The screen showed intercepted communications between various mercenary groups. The content made him smile. "Commander Hayes, I believe your team is becoming famous," he said as Diane entered the room. She raised an eyebrow. "Famous isn't the objective, sir." "No, but fear is a useful tool." He gestured to the screens. 3 separate mercenary bands have declined contracts involving human targets in the past week. They're spreading stories about us. Diane read some of the translated messages. One Vrax captain described human special forces as silent predators who strike without warning. Another message from a different alien species warned others to avoid the Deathworlders at all costs. They continue fighting even when mortally wounded. "Reputation can be as effective as firepower," Diane acknowledged, "but we still haven't found all the captives." "That's about to change." Blackwood brought up a new file. "We've recovered Lieutenant Morrison." Diane's eyes widened slightly. "Jack, Morrison had been among the first humans taken in the raid on Proxima Centauri B. How?" "Your last operation disrupted a slave transport. Morrison was among the 33 humans your team freed, though you didn't know it at the time. He was unconscious in the medical bay. His condition? Stable. Their experiments left some scars, but nothing our medical technology can't handle. More importantly, he has critical intelligence." Blackwood tapped a command and a star chart appeared. "He knows where they're keeping Sergeant Winters and the remaining captives." Diane studied the location, a massive base on the moon of a gas giant deep in consortium territory. "That's heavily defended territory." "Yes. And General Zextal has called in reinforcements. He's hosting some kind of gathering of mercenary leaders. Intelligence suggests he's trying to form a united front against us." A knock at the door interrupted them. Lieutenant Jack Morrison entered, walking with a slight limp but otherwise looking remarkably healthy for someone who had been a captive for months. "Lieutenant," Diane greeted him with a nod. "Commander," he returned the gesture. "I've heard what your team has been doing. Impressive work." "We still haven't recovered everyone," she said. "That's why I'm here." Morrison's eyes had a hardness that hadn't been there before his captivity. "I want to join your team for the next mission. I know their main base inside and out. I spent weeks memorizing their patrol patterns, security systems, everything." Blackwood looked to Diane. "Your call, Commander." She studied Morrison carefully. "The Ghost Squad works as a unit. We train together, fight together. Adding someone new before a critical mission is risky." "I understand," Morrison said. "But I know something your intelligence hasn't picked up yet. They're using Sergeant Winters and the others as test subjects for a new bioweapon. They've discovered something in human DNA that makes us uniquely dangerous. They're trying to weaponize it. Diane's expression didn't change, but her voice grew colder. You're on the team, Lieutenant. Briefing in 1 hour. After Morrison left, Blackwood raised an eyebrow. That was fast. We need his intelligence, Diane said simply. And he needs, closure. The briefing was tense. Morrison shared everything he knew about the consortium's main base, its defenses, its personnel, and most importantly, the laboratory where they were conducting their experiments. The aliens are terrified of what they've discovered about us, Morrison explained to the team. Our ability to survive in environments that would kill most species, our capacity to heal from injuries, our adaptability. They see it as both a threat and an opportunity. Chen studied the base schematics. Security looks even tighter than the last facility. It is, Morrison confirmed. But there's a weakness. The base was built by 3 different species each, with their own architectural standards. The junction points between sections don't always align perfectly. There are gaps in the security coverage. Rodriguez grinned. Gaps are all we need. The plan they developed was bold. Perhaps too bold. Instead of their usual stealth approach, they would use the gathering of mercenary leaders as cover for a more direct infiltration. Chen and Grant would pose as representatives of a new mercenary group seeking contracts, using disguises and voice modulators to pass as alien species known for wearing environmental suits. This is risky, Jackson warned. If they scan for human biosigns, they won't, Chen said confidently. I've modified our suits to mask our life signs. As far as their scanners are concerned, we'll register as Quilani mercenaries, methane, breathers who never remove their suits in oxygen environments. While Chen and Grant attended the gathering to gather intelligence and create a distraction, Diane, Morrison, Lawson, and Rodriguez would infiltrate the laboratory section to free the captives. Jackson would remain with their ship ready to receive the rescued humans. 2 days later, the plan was in motion. The Shadowfax emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system, its advanced stealth systems making it virtually invisible to consortium sensors. The team prepared for deployment, checking their equipment one final time. Remember, Diane told them, these aliens are already spreading stories about human capabilities. We're going to use that fear, make them believe the stories are tame compared to reality. The infiltration began smoothly. Chen and Grant, disguised in their environmental suits, successfully passed through security and entered the gathering of mercenary leaders. Their modified suits transmitted everything they saw and heard back to the Shadowfax. What they discovered was unexpected. The mercenaries weren't just discussing defense strategies against humans. They were sharing stories about encounters with the Ghost Squad. Some were accurate, others were wildly exaggerated. They say the humans can see in complete darkness, one 4-armed alien mercenary claimed. My squad had the lights cut in an ambush. The humans moved through the darkness like it was daylight, killing 15 of my best fighters without making a sound. Another alien, a massive creature with chitinous armor, added. Their medic revived. A human who had been clinically dead for 4 minutes. They simply refused to die by normal standards. Grant and Chen exchanged glances inside their helmets. The stories were creating a mythical image of human capabilities, one that worked in their favor. Meanwhile, Diane led her team through the maintenance shafts that Morrison had identified. They encountered minimal resistance. Most of the security forces had been reassigned to protect the mercenary gathering. The laboratory should be just ahead, Morrison whispered, checking his scanner. Life signs indicate 23 humans inside. Diane nodded. Lawson, take point. Rodriguez, prepare breach charges. Just as they reached the laboratory entrance, alarms blared throughout the base. That's not us, Rodriguez said, checking his tactical display. Morrison's face paled. It's Winters. She's made a move. Inside the laboratory, chaos reigned. Security footage showed Sergeant Olivia Winters, despite months of captivity and experimentation, had somehow broken free of her restraints. She had barricaded herself in the laboratory's control room and was systematically releasing other human captives. Change of plans, Diane ordered. We support Winter's breakout. Full tactical assault, weapons free. Rodriguez, create some distractions in the southern quadrant. As the team moved to their new positions, the base's comm system crackled with panicked reports. The mercenaries were mobilizing to contain the human outbreak, but confusion spread as multiple alarms triggered across different sections. On the Shadowfax, Admiral Blackwood monitored the situation. "Ghost Squad," he transmitted. "Be advised. We're detecting unusual biosign readings from some of the captives. Whatever experiments they were conducting may have had effects." Diane acknowledged the warning as her team breached the laboratory entrance. What they found inside would forever change how the galaxy viewed humans, and why alien mercenaries would come to dread facing Deathworlder special forces more than any other enemy in the known universe. The laboratory doors slid open, revealing a scene of chaos. Broken equipment sparked across the room. Alarms blared as emergency lights bathed everything in pulsing red. 4 alien researchers cowered behind an overturned table while 2 security guards lay unconscious nearby. In the center of the room stood Sergeant Olivia Winters. She had changed since Jack Morrison last saw her on Proxima Centauri b. Her body was leaner, her eyes sharper, and a series of unusual markings ran along her arms, evidence of the experiments she had endured. "Took you long enough," she said when she spotted Morrison and the Ghost Squad team. Morrison stepped forward. "Olivia, you're alive." "Barely." She gestured to the other humans she had already freed. Most looked weak and disoriented, but a few showed the same unusual markings as Winters. "I couldn't wait any longer. They were moving into the final phase of testing." Diane moved to secure the room, signaling for Rodriguez and Lawson to watch the doors. What exactly were they testing? "They call it the Nexus program," Winters explained. "They discovered something unique about humans. Our cells adapt to stress in ways no other species can match. They were trying to isolate that trait." Jackson examined one of the freed captives, his medical scanner humming. "These changes in their DNA, it's like accelerated evolution." A loud explosion rocked the base. Through their comms, they heard Chen's voice. "Commander, we've created a distraction in the gathering hall. But we've got a problem. General Zextal recognized our disguises. The entire base is on alert." "Understood. Proceed to extraction point Bravo," Diane ordered. "We've located the captives and are moving out now." Jackson looked up from his scanner, with concern. "Some of these people can't be moved yet. The experiments have left them unstable." "Then we split up," Diane decided quickly. "Morrison, take Winters and the mobile captives with Rodriguez and Lawson to the extraction point. Jackson, stabilize who you can. I'll stay with you and provide cover." Morrison nodded, understanding the risk Diane was taking. "We'll send the ship back for you." As Morrison led his group toward the nearest exit, the base defenses went into full lockdown. Bulkheads began sealing throughout the facility. "This way," Winters said, pointing to a maintenance shaft. "They never secured these properly because the openings are too small for most consortium species." The group squeezed through the narrow passage, making their way toward the extraction point. They encountered several alien security teams, but the combination of Lawson's precision fire and Rodriguez's tactical explosives cleared their path. Meanwhile, Chen and Grant fought their way out of the gathering hall. Their disguises abandoned, they moved with the full capabilities of their augmented bodies. The assembled mercenary leaders watched in shock as the 2 humans displayed fighting skills that seemed impossible. Grant's cybernetic hands shifted forms as she fought, adapting to each opponent. Against armored foes, they became piercing claws. Against unarmored enemies, they became blunt impact weapons. The mercenaries had never seen such adaptability in combat. Chen's neural implants processed battlefield data faster than any organic mind could. He anticipated attacks before they came, positioning himself perfectly to counter each move. To the watching aliens, it appeared as if he could read minds. "Record everything," one mercenary leader ordered his subordinates. "The others must see what we're facing." In the medical lab, Jackson worked frantically to stabilize the weakest captives while Diane held off waves of security forces. 3 minutes, Jackson called out. I need 3 more minutes. Diane nodded, reloading her weapon. You'll get them. The aliens had adapted their tactics. Instead of rushing in directly, they used gas weapons and tried to flood the room with sedative agents. They had learned that direct confrontation with humans often ended poorly for them. Diane had anticipated this. Her combat suit included filtration systems specifically designed to counter alien chemical weapons. She held her position at the door, picking off any alien that tried to enter. Done, Jackson finally announced. They're stable enough to move. They gathered the remaining captives, some on improvised stretchers, and headed for the secondary extraction point. The path was harder. Now, security forces had regrouped and blocked main routes. Commander, Chen's voice came through comms again. We've reached the ship. Morrison's group is here too. What's your status? Surrounded, Diane replied calmly. We need an alternative exit. East quadrant, level 3. On it, Chen replied. Calculating optimal breach point now. Aboard the key. Shadowfax Chen used the ship's sensors to identify the weakest point in the base's outer wall near Diane's position. The ship's weapons targeted that section with surgical precision, creating an opening without risking harm to those inside. Just as Diane and Jackson reached the breach with their injured captives, General Zexatal himself appeared with an elite guard unit. Enough, the general roared. You will not leave this facility. Diane stepped forward, placing herself between the aliens and the humans she was protecting. Stand aside, General. This ends today. Zextal's scales shifted color with rage. You primitive creatures. You have no idea what forces you're interfering with. The consortium requires human biological material for study. We are not your test subjects, Diane replied, her voice deadly calm. We are not your specimens. We are human beings. And we are taking our people home. The general raised his weapon. 1 Deathworlder against 6 elite warriors? Even your kind cannot overcome those odds. Diane smiled slightly. You still don't understand what you're dealing with. What happened next would become legendary among mercenary groups across the galaxy. Diane moved with such speed that the recording devices barely captured her actions. Her combat augmentations, combined with natural human reflexes honed by evolution on a death world, made her movement seem impossible. 3 alien guards fell before they could fire a single shot. The 4th and 5th managed to discharge their weapons, but Diane had already calculated their aim and moved accordingly. The bolts of energy struck empty air. General Zexatal fired directly at Diane's chest. His weapon was powerful enough to penetrate most armor. The bolt hit her squarely, but instead of falling, she staggered only briefly before continuing her advance. Impossible, the general whispered. Diane reached him, knocking his weapon aside. You should have studied us better, she said as she subdued him with a precise strike. Minutes later, the Shadowfax retrieved Diane, Jackson, and all the remaining captives through the breach. As they prepared to depart, Diane made a surprising decision. Bring the general aboard, she ordered. Alive. Blackwood questioned her once they were safely in orbit. Why take him prisoner? Because dead enemies teach nothing, Diane explained. But a living general who has seen what humans can do, he will spread the story far more effectively than we ever could. 1 week later, the Shadowfax returned to Earth orbit. All the captives had been rescued, though some would need extended treatment to recover from the experiments performed on them. General Zextal was brought before United Earth leadership. Rather than executing him, they made him an offer. Return to his people as an ambassador and advocate for a formal peace agreement. Why would I do this? The general asked. Admiral Blackwood smiled. Because now you understand what happens when someone provokes humans. Next time we won't send just 1 team. 6 months later, the Galactic Council formally recognized Earth and granted humans protected status. A new interstellar protocol prohibited military action against Deathworlder, species without council approval. Throughout the mercenary guilds of the galaxy, a new policy emerged. Contracts involving human targets now included a Deathworlder multiplier, tripling the standard payment due to the extreme risk. Even with the increased payment, few would accept such contracts. In a distant space station bar frequented by Mercenaries General Zexatal, now Ambassador Zexatal, told his story to a group of young recruits. The humans have a saying, he concluded. They say, "Don't poke a sleeping bear." I did not understand this phrase until too late. Their special forces are not just soldiers. They are apex predators from a world that tried to kill them every day of their evolution. They do not fight, like us. They do not think like us. And if you value your life, you will never make them your enemy. As he spoke, a quiet human woman sat in the corner, sipping a drink. Commander Diane Hayes listened with amusement. The Ghost Squad's legend had grown far beyond their actual exploits, which suited Earth's strategy perfectly. Fear, after all, was sometimes more effective than force. And throughout the galaxy, alien mercenaries now dreaded nothing more than facing Deathworlder special forces.